I'm UX director at Wolff Olins. I've been there for about a year. Wolff Olins isn't actually a company that tends to show up in these kind of places. So only really been looking into technology and user experience and specifically in the last couple of years. So I thought maybe what would be good is just to start by introducing who the company are, so at least you have a bit of background. So it's 50-year-old this year. Was started back then by two guys. Got Michael Wolff on the left and Wally Olins on the right. So Michael came from industrial design and Wally from advertising. And back then, they were kind of pioneers, I guess, in design thinking. So they came together and basically used their skills to help organizations and companies communicate who they were, find out who they were. And that was classed as corporate identity back in the day. More recently, it sort of moved into what we all associate now with brand. There's a rumor that goes around the office that they were the ones that coined the term brand, but when I ask anyone, they kind of laugh in that sort of sinister type of so I don't know whether it's true or not. But anyway, we've got a long kind of good history. So some of the clients that we've worked for, you'll notice Macmillan up there on the we sort of worked on the brand for Macmillan. Another interesting one was the 2012 Olympic logo and identity, so we did that, along with a couple of others that you will recognise. But why did I join Wolff Olins? Because like I said, not traditionally a company that would have sort of played in this space. So previous to that, I was head of user experience at Digitas LBI. I was there for 10 years. Before that, I ran my own company doing design research and sort of service design. And then before that, I was a interaction designer at IDEO. Not a unicorn, definitely a specialism in user experience. But for me, I've always been interested in visual communication. It was my first degree. And so when this opportunity arose, it was almost like a no-brainer. Why not go and join the company that are defining what companies are all about and help them be at the coalface of experience design? Another point to make about Wolff Olins is culture is really important. It's something that we help our clients with, but it's also something that we hold really dear ourselves. And just to sort of illustrate that, I just wanted to show you a project that I did over the summer. So a small team of us worked together on this. So the Honey Club is a project that Wolff Olins supports. It initiated it, a group of people, a couple of years ago. It's a local community-based initiative based in King's Cross, and it's all about raising awareness of the bees in urban environments. And over the summer, we put together the King's Cross Bee Trail, which is basically an app enabled by beacon technology. So we placed, I don't know if you guys have been to King's Cross or Granary Square recently. It is just, it's changing every minute. It's a really exciting place to be. And there's a really nice, Argent, the developers have done a really great job with planting and sort of sustainability. And so we really wanted to bring the Honey Club out of our office and out of the sort of the organisations that it works with and put it into the community. So you can walk around King's Cross and find out about bees. You can do some activities. It unlocks vouchers for local restaurants. It was a really nice internal project that we were given the time and the space to do, and it sort of sums up a little bit for me what Wolff Olins is about. So now on to the main part of what I wanted to talk to you about. So about brand, basically. So I just wanted to start by asking you a question. What is it? What do you think of when you think of brand? How do you work with it? You know, what's your definition of brand? It's actually not a phrase that we use that much anymore. We actually call ourselves creative partners to ambitious leaders, and we've dropped we're not brand consultants anymore. And it's sometimes a bit difficult to explain, but I think it's because brand continuously gets used in the wrong way. And so just to explain what I mean by brand, or what I don't mean by brand, I'm not sure why that's a bit skewy, but it's not these things. Brand is definitely not marketing, logo, typeface, colours, advertising. It's about these. It's what a company stands for and how a company stands out from its competitors. It's about us answering these questions. Why do they exist? Who are they? What is it that they do? And ultimately, what is the company's purpose? And we've heard a little bit about that already. today about purpose and role and value. And that's basically what I want to talk to you about. It's about how we as user experience people get closer to representing that through the work that we do. And I think it's really important that we do. Because, like I said, this isn't something that I think gets talked about a lot in sort of UX circles, I thought maybe it'd be quite interesting for you guys to see, as it was for me when I joined, what actually some of the tools that these types of consultancies like Wolff Olins use. So we've got a tool, it's very simple, it's called the Brand Butterfly, and it basically is a way of helping a company get to their purpose, and it's just split into two halves. So we basically ask the question what the world needs and what is special about you as an organisation. In terms of what the world needs, we would go and ask these questions, so it's quite an external focused thing. We look at who the audience are, what their unmet needs, blah, blah, blah. We all know this kind of stuff. It'll be very familiar to you. And then internally, we would be asking internal stakeholders, staff, what is it that, what excites you? Where do you want to go in the world? What change do you want to be part of? So it's all about sort of what ambition you want to have. And it's the intersection of those two things that come together to define what a company's purpose is. So, I don't know why it's dropped the E. Another tool we use is called the Brand Impact Quadrant, which is what you're looking at. And it's got the 4 sections. So once you've got that purpose, you can then work out externally how you present yourselves. So that's the top half. So what's your offer? What are you actually putting out in the world? And what's the image that you want to portray? So that's the more traditional use of the word brand. So what's your logo? What's your colour? What imagery kind of thing do you use? Along the bottom is more a sort of internal facing elements. So what are your capabilities? What do you need to improve on? What do you need to develop? And what's your internal culture? So how are the people within your organisation going to deliver on that purpose? And the point of this is that you maximise the impact for that purpose within your organisation. So you can live and breathe that brand. You can also cut it another way, so you can cut it down the middle. So you could also look on the right and say that, okay, that's about your proposition and how you go to the world. And then you can look on the right-hand side and say, okay, that's about your personality and how you behave as if you were an individual. So those are 2 tools. I thought just to bring that last one to life, maybe we look at Google. It's a company that we all feel like we know, and just look at how they might present themselves on that quadrant. So, their offer, whilst it's about empowering people, there's also the sort of concept of moonshots and moving humanity on. So, the driverless car is a great example of that. You've then got Google campuses around the world. You've got all the big sort of server warehouses, all the capabilities that are required for them to do what they do. On the right-hand side, you've got material design. Talked about Apple being in every presentation and Airbnb. Material design is now in every presentation or discussion I find with designers. So the whole material design thing is all to do with the image that they portray and being consistent with that. And then I really struggled with the last one, how to represent that. And so the only thing I could come up with was the image from the film, The Internship, which I don't know if you've seen. But I think we all know stories, friends who work for Google who talk about how they work really hard to foster a culture of innovation and creativity and sort of forward thinking. So I thought hopefully that brings to life kind of not how you might use the quadrant, but just to bring it to life in terms of a brand that we know. So the point of this talk basically is to just hopefully rally us around as a kind of group of practitioners really around brand and user experience and bringing the two closer together and integrating it into our work. And I found this quote, it's a blog post by Paul Adams from Intercom, and the title of it's called The Dribblization of Design, which I thought was really nice, and that's what caught my attention. But about halfway down, there's this quote, which I'm going to read out because I think it's really quite pertinent. So it's still too rare to witness a designer talk about how their work maps to a mission, drives a vision forward, or how it is placed within product architecture. This should be the norm, not the exception. And this is a bit of my rant, really, is I'm hiring at the moment, just so you know. I'm looking for a kind of mid-level UX person. We've been interviewing for a while, and I'll give you just a little tip. Come in and interview with me. One of the questions I will ask is, how does brand and user experience work together? How does it influence the work that you do? Or how could it influence the work that you do? And I swear nobody in the interview process has answered that question well. They talk about, I maintain consistency and make sure the colours are right, or that things look the right, or the logo's in the right place. And it's like, that's the visual element. I'm not interested in that. That's the visual designer's job. I mean, obviously you'd have an opinion on it, but it's not your domain. Let's talk about the branded experience. And nobody ever can. Nobody ever does. And this is what I'm imploring that we do more of, is that we think about the branded experience. And that, we talked a lot about equations today. Here's an equation. It's not mine. But we talk about user-centered design and bringing the user requirements in. Everything we do also has business requirements. But I think we need to introduce a third element into the equation. We need to bring the brand in. What is the purpose of the company? What are we, as user experience people, trying to communicate and trying to sort of deliver on when we design the things that we design? Because I think if we don't, we're going to kind of end up with some sort of race to the bottom where there's some kind of ubiquitous interface that just, one interface for banking, one interface for shopping. I put my hand up here, I worked on the green version of that. But they're all looking the same. And obviously I know that there's functional requirements involved, and so people need to get things done. But if everything's just becoming standardized and looking the same, then, how do we differentiate between what a company stands for and what it doesn't? So that's my sort of call to arms, really, for us as a group of people. I thought I'd just spend the next 10 minutes showing you two projects, one a Wolff Olins project and one from my sort of previous job, that hopefully bring to life some of the work that I think that we should be doing, and give you some ideas about how to maybe integrate brand more into the work that you do. One is quite strategic and might help you when you're thinking about, when working with clients, what to actually do, because if you've got an end-to-end customer journey, there's lots of opportunities there. And then the other one is very tactical. It's a tool, that an experience principles tool, basically, that I use quite a lot. So the first one is Skype. So this was all done before I joined Wolff Olins, so just to caveat this. This was a 7-year relationship that Wolff Olins had with Skype. So Skype had a perception problem with customers, basically. So I don't know if you can see that yet. So Skype thought about its offer in this very holistic, very functional way, but it was very quite rich. It did lots of things, it delivered lots of things. The problem was that the customers really, and I don't know if you can see there's some purple words highlighted, they really only thought about 3 things. They thought about video, they thought that it was free, and they thought about calls. They didn't think about the rest of that stuff. So there was a real sort of perception problem. So what we did was we used the brand butterfly tool and the impact quadrant, and basically came up with a clear role that Skype should play in people's lives. So this is the purpose. So it's about doing things. It's about doing things together whenever you're apart. So that basically is what Skype is in the world to do from now on. It's about helping people get together, cross barriers, whether that's social barriers, cost, technological, and basically whenever they're apart, bring them together in a rewarding way. And I like this slide personally because for me it actually sums up one of the reasons why I joined Wolff Olins. So you'll notice I've highlighted in the middle there, sort of redesigning digital touch points. So that purpose became a starting point for a whole host of activities that Wolff Olins did on behalf of Skype. Not things that I would expect to be involved with all of them, but maybe there's a couple of them that would have been really great as a UX person to be involved with, like brainstorming new product ideas, crafting the new value proposition, launching those new product ideas, as well as looking at the digital touch points and how that purpose filters through. So after that, after we created that brand strategy, It meant the elevator pitch was singing. We simplified how they presented their offer. We built useful tools and processes internally to help them structure themselves better. And we helped the CEO. We drove the leadership and the company story. But the one I sort of is obviously closest to my heart and our hearts would be the middle one. Created a user journey that made sense inside and out. And just quickly, I just thought it'd be interesting to show you one of the customer journeys that we produced. So this was a very data-driven journey. So we employed data scientists to help us with this. We mapped every stage of the journey. We took data from multiple different sources, any source of data we could find. So this is a very accurate representation of the pain, the highs and the lows within the existing Skype customer journey. Incidentally, just as an anecdote, what's interesting is the low points are the points where teams come together to work on a project. So different departments have ownership over those different points. So that was kind of insightful in itself, just to show that within an organization, you know, the pain points for a customer usually comes where there's more than one team involved in sort of representing that touch point. And of course, you know, the next step would obviously be designing the experiences. So again, looking at the different touch points along that journey and working out strategically where we need to have impact. It doesn't necessarily always mean having an impact on the low points, but that was the next part of the process, is to go and look at the interfaces, to go and look at the marketing, to go and look at the stuff out in the real world and look at how we as an organization can help carry through that brand strategy. In terms of impact, we more than doubled the number of active users. It increased the activity of those users so that we had basically 40% more people doing things together. And then I just quickly wanted to show you some tools that we produce. So tools are quite important as a way of making sure that that brand strategy travels through the whole company. And it needs to travel beyond the company. It needs to travel into agencies. It needs to travel into partners. And so we quite often create tool books. We create online resources. And I want to draw attention just to the video and also the manifesto, because how often do UX practitioners actually get access to that? Yes, we might get the visual style guide, although that tends to go to the visual design team. How often do we actually get to look at the purpose, to work with the brand team, to really understand the company's purpose and its values? Not that often, actually. It goes straight into requirements and we go straight to user needs. So coming back to that equation, I think we need to sort of rebalance it a bit. And then just to quickly end, in terms of impact, what was really nice about this is that we got recognition from the CEO. So this is the CEO of Skype at the time. You can see behind he's got plinths with some balls on it, and those represented the different spots in that customer journey. So this was a bit of theatre. He basically did this. He instigated a sort of monthly senior stakeholder meeting where they would assess the state of the customer journey. But the story here is that, you know, he thought that was such an important piece of work to do, and he tasked his whole team around him to really work on that customer journey. So that was a more strategic project. And then at a very tactical level, I thought I'd show you a tool, an experience principles tool that we used a few years ago with one of our clients. So Virgin Atlantic joined, this was when I was at Digitas LBI. This was how they were presenting themselves to the world. I mean, it's quite a familiar image. They're quite image-led as a company. But this is what you got if you went online at the time. I mean, unrecognizable. So we were lucky in this project. I think I said it in the synopsis. I mean, I've worked on a lot of projects where, don't worry, the brand's coming in a couple of months' time. It's like, well, actually, I need it right at the beginning. I need to know right now what it is that your company stands for and what I'm trying to help out with. And so what was nice about this was that the brand work had just been done. And so when we were briefed on that project, that redesign project, we had it all to work with, and we were able to work collaboratively with the brand team, who were obviously very excited because this was a new thing. So they had this concept of the purpose was to produce everyday pioneers out of all of us, consumers and staff. And that broke down into a set of brand values, really rich brand values, 9 in total. But the problem was that The explanations of these values were, well, they were very brief. They were kind of also focused on employees. So we took it upon ourselves as an organisation, as a group of people, to translate those into what we call experience principles. And I just thought it'd be good to show you just quickly the actual detail of that tool. So it took a couple of weeks. As I said, we worked with the brand team, we worked with the client stakeholders on the project, and we really made sure that we had a holistic understanding as a team of what those different values mean. So there's 9 in total, and each one had a couple of different sections. So we had the description, we had the brand value, which was taken literally from the brand team. But then we started to investigate it in workshops. So something I quite like to do is to always look at how a value is personified maybe by a celebrity, because I think actually celebrities are quite a nice way of kind of bringing us all together. So in this case, the brand value is alive, and we chose Jamie Oliver. I mean, he's very energetic, he's very alive, he's very passionate, he's a good personification of that value. We also looked at, for our persona set, which of our personas would resonate most with that value and what would that mean to that persona. And then you can see on the right-hand side, we had something there about other competitors or other experiences that were demonstrating that value. And also starting to sketch out how, as a team, you might start to own that principle. So it's no good having lots of words and maybe a celebrity and a persona. But actually, this is a tool, and so we wanted to give people a bit of a head start. So I think it's always important as well to start having some ideas and then capturing those as part of this tool. So it manifested itself as a set of cards initially, which was really great because it meant everyone involved in the project would get a set. We take them into workshops, they're very portable, you can reference individual cards very easily, the client had them. After a while, it became quite intuitive, but we were also very disciplined in the use. So any reviews, we would review against these values. Any kind of brainstorm sessions, they were integral to the work that we did. A bit later on, we turned it into an app, but I think the app has some disadvantages, really, because it doesn't have that kind of tangible quality that the cards do. And then just lastly, to just show you some results, really. So bearing in mind this was a few years ago, so maybe the results don't look as impressive as they did at the time. But so this was what we were starting with. Did the sketching, went through lots of iterations, and there was a lot of user testing, and the design was finally streamlined, and this is what went live. But I just wanted to highlight in terms of some of the values. So confident is one of the brand values for Virgin Atlantic. And what's that all about? It's about customers wanting to feel like they've done the right thing, so giving them the confidence. But there's also an element internally that Virgin Atlantic employees, and as a company, they need to behave in a confident manner. So, it was actually quite innovative at the time to put all 3 cabin classes on the screen and to show people that actually you could get a flight that's nearly £200, but you could also pay £3,000 for the same flight, depending on which cabin you're in. And that actually, as an organisation, that takes confidence, because normally you sort of ask people about cabin, and then after a bit of self-selection, you only show them one price. But it also gave people the confidence to make the decision that was right for them and maybe think about going a bit further. And then the last principle, just to illustrate, is adventurous. So again, about pushing people to do a bit extra. And so what we did was commission some really sort of high quality visuals, a video that illustrated what it was like to be in each cabin, so that you could really explore whether it was worth paying the extra couple of £1,000 or a couple of £100 to sort of upgrade and go in a different cabin. So those are some examples. And then I've just to conclude, things that I hope that you all take forward and feel like you can kind of contribute to your daily work. That UX and brand should work as creative partners. So brand can't be something that you get given a document at the beginning, and then towards the end, maybe someone checks in to make sure the logo's in the right place or that the colours are right. We need to understand the company's mission, what their purpose is and what their values are, and we need to personify that. I think Amanda said that about, what's great about having an in-house UX team is that the people live and breathe the brand values. Well, if you work in an agency, it's your responsibility to do the same thing. And I think we don't push enough sometimes with our clients to let us in on those details. So we need to push for more collaboration with the brand team. It can't just be the IT and marketing team that we're working with. Brand needs to come in and play a major part. But it has to go beyond the visual guidelines. So we need to make sure that we watch those videos, we read those manifestos, and we actually start workshopping and understanding the detail of the mission and understanding the detail of the values. And then, as I said, it actually takes discipline to do this because it is an extra layer that we have to embed into our process. We're user-centered, we're driven by business requirements and KPIs. Now we've got another set of requirements to listen to. But I think that actually, if we don't do it, then, are all interfaces going to look the same? Is all online experiences going to be ubiquitous? That's the question I want us to avoid, really. So that's it. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Right, we've got a couple of minutes before break. Questions? Do we have any questions? We must have some questions about brand and user experience. Come on. Okay, yeah, no. And also, yeah, do you want to sit down?
No, I don't need to sit down.
You sure?
And I didn't get out, I don't know if anyone noticed, I've got my ninja pregnancy outfit on as my husband.
Ninja pregnancy, okay, I'm going to stand back. Duncan at the back.
Yeah, hi. So
Hi.
I was just wondering if you've got any examples of interfaces, apps, websites more recently that you can say, in case you couldn't hear me, you can hear me now. Yeah, any examples of apps, websites, user interfaces that you think really do lift or reflect the brand, taking kind of the visual design element away from it?
Yeah, I think it's really hard, and I think there aren't that many good examples. And when you do look for, like if you Google those type of things, copy actually is the thing that comes out that differentiates online experiences right now. A lot of people talk about Virgin America, and I do think actually they are differentiating themselves in quite a holistic way. So they use copy well, they use imagery. But I think it's actually, there aren't very many examples of where a brand purpose is translated through into the actual user experience design. So unfortunately, I think no, there's not, obviously I'm going to say Virgin Atlantic and some of the projects that I've worked on, but yeah, on the whole, I don't think there are great examples. And I think it's because it does take a lot of discipline, and it probably takes extra time, I think, to embody it into a user experience. So maybe that's a reason why it doesn't happen at the moment. And going back to that interview question, everyone just falls back on the functional requirements that they were meeting when they were briefed. So yeah, I think it's a change in mindset or a widening of perspective maybe that we need to make. Good question, though.
Thanks. Hi, Sarah. Question for you. Do you have any tips for us? Because in the past, I felt that working with brand teams, it almost felt territorial, that they owned experience and everybody else was servicing them. But it almost became territorial. So I was just wondering whether or not you might have any tips for experienced designers thinking about working with brand and trying to get the best out of what everybody's trying to do together.
I guess a lot of the time, brand either falls into, like you say, there's two types of brand person, I guess, that I've come across. Is either one who play the brand police, so they literally talk about, white margins around the logo, and that's the wrong use of the headline font and that kind of thing. Or yes, you get the other type who feel like they're owning the experience. And I think we have a set of tools. I mean, we saw them earlier being presented, all of our customer journey mapping and visualization tools, they all help to explain that there's an end-to-end customer experience and that actually brand is threaded all the way through that. And that as user experience people, we can have a really high impact on that. And so I think it's not just using journey mapping and stuff in our own kind of purposes and for service design, but actually taking it out to a wider team and showing the brand team these kind of tools. I think that seems to work. You know, increasingly we're having more conversations where it opens up the possibilities. I think we're a bit lucky at Wolf Hollins because the conversations we have are quite often C-suite, so we've almost got an open ear anyway, and they're open to the changes that we're suggesting. But I think I'm a massive fan of visualization of processes and impact and value. So I think we should be using those tools in a wider sense, not just for our own purposes, but as sort of communication externally to other teams.
Thank you.